Who want one last trip to the long trail?
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to talk about all of the great work that's happening with the tournament players. You know, these guys sacrifice a lot and they put a lot on the line. So much. Look, I've been labbing a lot of Eddie over the past 2 weeks, and I can understand a fraction of what these guys go through to master the whole roster, whether they're just trying to get matchup knowledge or whether they're trying to become a Mokujin type player and master every character. It's a lot of work, and these guys really sacrifice so much to become the masters that they are. And it's quite interesting that the game itself doesn't respect those guys, and it tries to decrease the skill gap between them and us as much as possible. I mean, it makes sense though. Those guys is a fraction of the audience and we make up the majority. And if we could get a W over them, it increases our enjoyment, it increases our motivation. We play longer. If we play longer, then we buy more. That side of the conversation is all about engagement. But what I want to talk about today is Arslan and a way that he is continuously shaking up the game. You know, we just had that incredible match between Gosane and the John.
I should have won. They're like, oh no, you should have adjusted the combo. I'm a low player for 50 billion years. I know that you should have adjusted the combo and done whatever there. You got Ivory Coast, you get to grand finals, you play the John and do those flipping John carry combos. People knew, like, I was on the same level as the Pakistanis, man. But now people know.
You have Daniel Mato. He says, I moved from another continent, far from my friends and my family, only because I didn't want to play online. This is online Tekken, which I hate. And I ended up playing online. So what I know is that Daniel Mato went to, I believe, Japan, and he was trying to play like an arcade scene and get some real world experience. But, you know, not too many places have an arcade scene anymore. It's really only Pakistan that has it, which is why they're so strong, is because their unity there is just godlike. He goes on to say in a tweet, I'm going to apply for a long-term visa for Pakistan. I'm really bored of offline and I can't even play it seriously or enjoy. So this is just how influential Pakistani players are in the game and out the game. We saw them redefine the meta in Tekken 7. We saw them establish the meta and also the pace, the tone. If you want to play Tekken 8 at a competitive level, you need to play as fast as them and better. Watching the Pakistani players play, no matter which character they're on, they play so fast, so active. I could imagine the developers smiling ear to ear when watching them play, because those guys are zipping through all the stances, doing all the plus frames. It's non-stop button pressing. Those guys really embrace Tekken 8 like no one ever could have imagined, because those guys are defensive powerhouses. So usually you think it would be difficult to adjust from defense to offense, but those guys did it the best. People who haven't done it so good as those guys is like a Knee, is like a Anakin. You know, there's many players who are struggling to still find their identity in Tekken 8, but also maintain it. Knee rises up, but then he does very well, but then he kind of falls down and then he has to build himself back up. Some players are going on this constant back and forth push and pull to keep up with the level of gameplay that the Pakistani players are putting out. Everyone knows about the Arslan and Knee beef. Knee plays Brian, Arslan was playing Nina and Anna. Knee says Anna's number one, Arslan says Brian number one. I believe Arslan did a tier list and he put Brian Fury number one, but really both of those characters are super powerful. But the interesting thing is that a lot of people think that Arslan and, you know, Atif and whoever, right, is carried by these powerful characters. But I think that is like not true anymore. First off, Arslan specifically has proved that he could dominate with many characters, right? Lucky Chloe in Tekken 7, Katarina. Did he play Noctis? I don't know. He's played so many characters. And I also think that's what allows him to stay so elusive. Right now, everyone hates Anna. Everyone is dreading Nina. Everyone is thinking about the Alyssa, the Claudio. But then Arslan, without being provoked, without taking a loss, switches mains. And the character he switches to is Asuka. And this is crazy because I remember I was on stream talking with Asuka mains and I was telling them how powerful the character is. But they didn't want to hear it. They're like, lol, I'm not going to listen to a Yoshi main talk about how powerful my character is. Get out of here, bro. And I was like, all right, hey, you don't want to believe me? Don't believe me. And I was showing this tweet actually. This is at the start of season 2. Nee says top 5 strongest characters currently for competitive Tekken 8 is Asuka, Raven, Anna, Alyssa, and Panda. Now, since this tweet, the developers have balanced the game somewhat. Raven has fallen and he's no longer top 5. Panda has fallen and she's no longer top 5. Those two characters are still really strong, just like pretty much every character in this game. But the ones who maintain their power through all of the balancing that's been done is Asuka, Anna, and you can even say Alyssa. She's on here, right? But the interesting thing about this, if you look at Arslan's top 5 going back to September, he says, my top 5 in Tekken 8 without order. This is also for competitive. Online and competitive is two very different things. And I think a lot of people struggle to grasp that concept. Competitive players can react, can punish, can move, can crouch out of so many more things than a average player can. The way that I would describe it is like you have a pro like F1 driver versus just your dad who's trying to get to work. Like if you put something in a road, that dad is going to hit it. You put an F1 driver, he's going to swerve out of the way. That's the level of reaction and skill we're dealing with, which is why on Arslan's tier list, he puts Dragunov. The Nina, the Anna, the Brian, the Claudio is all very predictable. I think Main Man did a tier list as well, and those 4 characters was also in top 5, but the Dragunov is one that confuses a lot of people. And the reason why Arslan puts Dragunov there is because his fundamental tools does great work at high level. You talk about being able to continuously pressure someone while also not putting yourself at risk to be destroyed. Dragunov is a character that does that, but that's not who we're talking about for this video. We're talking about Asuka, and Asuka is not on Arslan's top 5. Now, he did talk about the character in another tweet where he went to Evo France. Now, I didn't watch it myself because I think the tournaments are getting kind of boring. They need to do some balancing and spice it up. But from what I did see is that there was a lot of Yoshimitsu's and there was a lot of Asukas. But also the people who were doing work with Yoshimitsu and Asuka were the people who mained those characters. We have yet to see someone switch to like a Yoshimitsu who's not a Yoshi main and then do really well. It just hasn't happened on a global scale yet. That doesn't mean that Yoshimitsu isn't powerful. That doesn't mean Asuka isn't powerful. It just means something different. But who knows? With what Arslan is doing now, maybe that will change. Because in this tweet, he says, this Evo is Evo Asuka and Yoshimitsu. So this is when Asuka started to be on his radar. You know, he's been fighting King Ray Jr. He lost to Fergus in a major upset a little while ago. So Asuka has been on his mind for quite some time, and he's been labbing the character a lot. And all of that labbing resulted in this tweet here. Can't believe I'm actually maining both Lidia and Asuka. Tekken 8 changes people. Someone asked him why Asuka. He says, I like dumb characters, I guess. What I assume he means by this is like dumb in terms of like broken. Asuka is a character who was given buffs in season 2, and those buffs allow her to just basically transition through some stances, aha, bokeh, and she could just continue the pressure. She has gotten some very good combos, very good wall enders. Another thing too about Asuka is that she's one of the few characters who could play Tekken 8 and Tekken 7 at the same time. What I mean by that is you have the hyper aggressive offense, but then also you have parry, can, evasion. Yoshimitsu is a character who also could do both as well. Spin, flash, low unblockable, down forward 4 evasion. But then also Yoshimitsu can start doing some forward 1+2s and get some crazy pressure as well. Not many characters can do the offense and defense like those characters. It kind of is what makes them special, but it's kind of what makes them broken because they're not supposed to have those tools. But the reason why they have them is because this is Tekken 8. The developers want characters to get really aggressive and want them to press buttons. Now, those buttons that you press to get aggressive are powerful ones when you talk about Asuka and Lydia. Let's switch topics real quick. We talked a little bit about Asuka. Now Lydia. Lydia in season 1 was a character who I personally feel was monstrous. And in season 2, I still feel she's that same way. It's just that she is kind of getting overshadowed by other characters. But in season 1, Lydia was a character who got multiple God matches in tournament. What that means is you have one player get 3 perfects in a row, so they take no damage the whole entire match. Lydia did that multiple times, and that's because once she gets in on you, which is very easy to do so, forward 2 in the stances, once she does that, You just have to guess. And when her install starts to build up, guessing wrong becomes more and more dangerous to do so. So if you were to master her stances, condition your opponent properly, honestly, I think you should never lose against as Lydia. And it makes sense why Arslan would be looking to play her, but maining her is a very powerful thing. Same thing with Asuka, right? Because everyone's been talking about Anna and what she's doing, and Arslan has been using those characters to great success. This is the thing. I don't understand why he's switching, because Arslan just won Evo France, won Evo Vegas. He's been doing great work with Anna, and the developers don't seem to be nerfing her anytime soon. So in my opinion, I would think like just keep playing the characters and keep winning. But he's switching.